Good Monday morning. It is 7 a.m. and thrilled to have you along with us. I'm your host, Monica Adams, the show, The Real Monica Adams Show. We need to be more authentic, real, and kind in life. Those are all the messages of the show that we've been giving you for the last, year plus. It is a hot day, so please be careful. A lot of hot tempers out there when people just get agitated by the heat. We're going to talk about just how extreme those temperatures can get today and how dangerous it is. You know, when we get to this point, that's when we start seeing heat exhaustion and heat-related illnesses. So please take care of yourself first. Take care of your kids, take care of the seniors, take care of your four-legged animals as well. So we're going to talk about weather, and then we're going to give you a rundown of news as we go into Monday morning and recap a lot of the things that happened across the nation and here locally in the weekend wrap-up. We've got some entertainment news. I can't believe how many people we lost in the entertainment world over the weekend. And then we had a chance to go to the St. Louis Cardinals game yesterday against the Chicago Cubs on a very hot day. We'll recap that as they take a break and get ready for the All-Star game. Let's start things out, though, because it's the number one thing we're all talking about, and that is the weather. What the weather segment?
Alrighty, welcome back into this new more weather forecast video. This one has been looking significant for a couple of days. So
good morning to you.
Good morning, Monica.
Finally.
Nice to be here.
Our aspiring meteorologist, as you see there, Beckett Moore. He's been doing an incredible job over the last couple of weeks reporting on the flooding in Grafton, Illinois. Well, now we're flipping from the flooding to extreme temperatures. First of all, good morning, Beckett.
Good morning from the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Wow, yes, he has traveled to North Carolina. I love it. Is it a little cooler there?
Yes, it is, but it's going to be actually feeling like how it is here later on this week.
Oh, okay. Well, we're just going to hand it off to you. So we're talking today in our immediate area, Beckett, of is it 102 and then the heat indices possibly up to 110?
Yes, we're likely going to have a high today of around 100 degrees. Again, that is very hot. You want to take those proper heat precautions. Again, check on the elderly, check on your pets, and please stay hydrated. Limit those strenuous activities. And if you are, make sure to stay hydrated because it's going to be very hot out there today. It's going to be sunny. We're going to have mostly sunny skies. So again, take those proper heat precautions today.
Yeah, absolutely dangerous. So when do we see a break in this? Because when we have something like this, we're hoping that it's not a pattern that we're going to have for the next several days.
Yes. Yeah, so we're actually going to be dropping below normal as we get past Tuesday. So tomorrow we're expecting a high of around 96, dropping by a little, but that's still going to be hot. Again, taking those proper heat precautions tomorrow as well, as we're going to be getting up into the upper 90s. We're going to have some cloud cover moving in as well as we go into Tuesday, some scattered storms. And then Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning, heavy rainfall is likely going to be around the St. Louis area. Exactly where the heaviest rain sets up, we really don't know yet. But flash flooding could be a threat, so make sure you are ready for that, as we are expecting heavy rainfall as we go into Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning. And you can't not love this as we go into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We're going to be at temperatures having our highs from the low to mid 80s. That is very below normal time of the year, and getting those lows possibly down into the low 60s. So it's going to be feeling very nice, feeling like I said how it is here, and also some sunshine Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Expecting a good amount of sunshine around Wednesday, though some scattered storms possible. So we first got to get through those 2 hot days, but then the rest of the week is looking very nice.
And then on Friday, we're going to check back in with Beckett because I asked him to give me a customized Cabo San Lucas forecast. You're going to be ready for that for me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Beckett, thank you so much and enjoy your time away in North Carolina.
Thank you.
All right, it is 7:02. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. If you're new to our show, isn't he great? He's our aspiring meteorologist. He's been with us since January, and again, getting attention from all over. Fox, Weather, the Weather Channel, Fox News, and I'm talking about not local Fox, but national, winning national awards. He is truly incredible, and we are thrilled and blessed to have him as part of our show. Well, if you haven't heard, and I don't know where you would have been if you have not heard about the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump, we're going to tell you where the investigation is at this point as they get ready for the Republican National Convention. And Donald Trump is calling for unity and resilience after an attempt on his life injected fresh uncertainty into an already tumultuous presidential campaign, while President Joe Biden implored Americans to, quote, cool it down in the final stretch and resolve our differences at the ballot box. As I mentioned, the Republican National Convention gets underway tonight. Former President Trump is slated to talk on Thursday. A full day after the shooting, the gunman's motive still remains a mystery. Investigators saying that they believe he acted alone before he was fatally shot by Secret Service agents. The FBI identified the man you see on your screen as Thomas Matthew Crooks, 20 years old, from Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. That's about 50 miles from the scene of the shooting. Everything we're hearing so far is that he kept to himself. The gun that he used was registered to his father, and yesterday there were explosives found in his car and at his home. Now, the upper part of Donald Trump's right ear was pierced by a bullet. His aide said that he was in great spirits. He was doing well. He arrived in Milwaukee last night for the convention. In a post yesterday on his social media site, Trump said, "In this moment, it's more important than ever that we stand united and show our true character as Americans, remaining strong and determined and not allowing evil to win." And in a primetime address, our current president, Biden, urged the public to recommit to civil debate, saying, quote, "There's no place in America for this kind of violence, for any violence, ever, period, no exception." He said, "We cannot allow this violence to be normalized." And I do want to honor one that was killed. A local law enforcement officer climbed to the roof, found Crooks, who pointed the rifle at the officer. The officer retreated down the ladder. The gunman quickly fired toward Trump, according to officials, and that's when the U.S. Secret Service gunman shot him. As I mentioned, bomb-making materials were found inside both Crooks' vehicle and at his home. A former Marine veteran and firefighter was killed, and there were two others that were critically injured. Those two that were in critical condition are now in stable condition. But let's please honor the life of a person who was lost. Again, a Marine veteran and a firefighter. So the investigation obviously will continue for probably weeks and months to come as to what this motive was. We haven't seen this type of an attempted assassination since 1981. So a lot of divisiveness in our world, unfortunately. In other news, there's an emergency training exercise that is taking place in St. Louis this week. It's actually a 3-day exercise. So if you're driving down Interstate 55 and you see a lot of military vehicles, don't be alarmed. It's an emergency preparedness drill for a scenario of a magnitude 8.4 earthquake. What that would look like if that took over St. Louis. Areas where the drills will be taking place: Busch Stadium, the Lindenwood Rail Yard, which is right near 44 and Arsenal, the Missouri River, including Wood River in St. Charles County. There will be over 500 people participating. These drills, by the way, are not open to the public, but we're letting you know about it so you're not alarmed if you're in these areas and you see a lot of people in, military vehicles and in uniform. I do also want to let you know, I don't know if they've wrapped this up yet, but northbound 109 drivers that try to get onto eastbound 44, there was a fatal accident overnight, so you were not able to access eastbound 44. If you or someone you know is getting ready to head out to work or to run some errands, let them know that they may have to reroute themselves, maybe go over near Six Flags and get on to 44 from there, or just try to find your way out. But northbound 109 to eastbound 44 could still be closed, and maybe for a little while, as they conduct the investigation again into an overnight fatal accident. In other news, we talked about the lives lost of some of our celebrities over the weekend, and there were many of them. You know, normally they say it happens in threes. If we just look at the weekend, that would be the case. But if we go back to the 11th, Shelley Duvall, do you know her from The Shining and the movie Popeye? She passed away over the weekend, as she was best known for those roles. She died on the 11th, by the way. Fitness icon Richard Simmons, who I was blessed to meet when I was at Fox 2. What an incredible, vibrant personality he was. He died just one day after his 76th birthday. Shannon Doherty, you know her from 90210. She died at the age of 53 after being diagnosed with breast cancer and dealing with that since 2015. And the best-known sex doctor that's ever existed, Dr. Ruth Westheimer. Yes, she died at the age of 96. So all of that from just this past weekend. Now, in sports news, the break for the big home run derby tonight, and then the All-Star game. And then the Cardinals will be back in action Friday after taking on the Cubs, the series that's gone on forever that everybody loves to pack the stadium. But what I noticed yesterday were a lot of empty seats, and that is because of how hot it was. We were lucky to be in the infield Redbird Club, so you can see that we were underneath an overhang, and we were able to have this humongous fan that was above us. I kept thinking, well, this doesn't feel too bad. Well, it was because of that right there. Thankfully, that was right above us. I had a chance to go with Dr. Sarah Franco, who many of you know over the past year from Invita. There she is on my left. And then, of course, Michelle Harmon, our executive assistant, one of my dearest friends. It was a wonderful day. Unfortunately, not in the score. The Cardinals lost 8-3. It was like home run after home run for the Cubs, unfortunately. On Friday, the Cards also lost to the Cubs, but they at least took a couple of games in that doubleheader on Saturday. So now you're all up to date in the news you need, news you can use, celebrity news, sports news as well. Today we're going to talk about something I'm very passionate about, and that is what are you putting inside your body? What's in our food? That is the biggest thing we're going to talk about, and it's how it does its manifestation on the outside. So we've talked in the past about celiac disease. My brother diagnosed with it probably 30 years ago, but one thing I didn't know is that it causes these rashes. I mean, really severe for some people on the outside of the body. So what in the heck is in our food causing that? Not just for celiac, but other issues with our food as well. The additives, the herbicides, all of that. And why is it so different in the United States than when people travel to Europe and then suddenly they're able to have gluten and they're like, why can I eat this? It's just mind-blowing. But we're going to break it all down today because it's Medical Monday. Ask the doctor, and it is Dr. Sarah Jensen from Regional Dermatology. I know some of you have already had a chance to set up your appointments and get into her. If you haven't, I talked to a bunch of people over the weekend that said, she can get me in now? The answer is yes. She has locations in Festus and Chesterfield, and she's here for each and every one of you. She also has a patient who is dealing with some of the things that we've talked about, Michael Minicky. They're going to be in the blue chairs when we return.
When I started MyPillow, it was just a problem solution, one product company. Well, since then, with the help of my dedicated employees, we now have hundreds of products, some you might not even know about. To get the word out, we're having a $25 extravaganza. 2-pack multi-use MyPillows, $25. MyPillow sandals, $25. And for the first time ever, our 6-pack towel sets, you guessed it, just $25. Our brand new 4-pack dish towels, $25. And I've never done this before. Premium MyPillows with all new Giza fabric, any size, any loft level, even king size for only $25. And there's so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code for our $25 extravaganza. Order $75 and over. Your entire order ships absolutely free.
And welcome back. We are talking about hot temperatures. You just heard Beckett say 102, heat indices 110. That's when you want that right there, right in your backyard, or you hope that one of your friends or your family members have one of those. That's the pool at Just Pools, by the way, on the West Outer Road in Arnold. And they've had a lot of people say, all right, let's break it down. What would the cost be for me to put in an in-ground pool? All right, what would the cost be for an above-ground pool? Work with your finances and then do what you can. Those are some added features that a lot of people love to do. Those rock walls, the fire, the water, people are loving that. And then you just create your whole backyard oasis. Hopefully you have somebody good to do your landscaping as well, so it looks that pretty. The umbrellas are so key to take you and protect you from the sun. So you can ask Just Pools about all of that. They are authorized Pentair dealers. Just Pools, pool and spa specialists. As you can see right there, there's their address, 3987 West Outer Road South, and the phone number is 636-464-7110. It is 7:14. Welcome back. And on Mondays, we like to dig into your health. It's Medical Monday and the Ask the Doctor segment that we started last year that's been so popular. So I'm looking at comments and questions. If you have any, we would love for you to interact live. And then if you watch this later, just let us know on the replay and you can tag myself and Dr. Sarah Jensen in the comments so that we can answer after the show. Let me actually introduce Dr. Sarah Jensen for those of you that are brand new from Regional Dermatology. Great to see you again.
Thank you. You too.
And one of your patients, Mike Minicky, right?
Yes, good
Well,
morning.
Mike, thanks for coming in.
Thanks.
I appreciate it. We're going to talk about several things today, but one of them is very near and dear to me. My brother was diagnosed with celiac disease, I think 30 years ago, when no one really knew what the heck it was. And my sister-in-law was on these threads with people around the world trying to say, well, you can try to use this, try to use this. This is long before any of you went to the store and you had this entire gluten-free aisle, right?
Right.
It was hard for her back then. But now she's like, oh, I'm really intrigued with this one. I never knew, after everything I've seen him deal with, that it also could create problems on the outside. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
And you said it's called, I'm not going to try to say the medical name. So what is it called?
It's called dermatitis herpetiformis.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Or DH is the easy way to go.
Like a
Yeah.
designated hitter.
Yeah.
No, I mean, look at these pictures, by the way. So you were mentioning with your current patient here, Mike, that it was kind of hard to diagnose in the beginning.
Initially, yeah, we were just talking about it. It took at least maybe 4 to 6 months at minimum, I think,
Yes.
to diagnose you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we, and it was, different doctors as well. So I went and saw an allergist, even went to urgent care at one point, had, blisters the roof of my mouth and ears. I went to ear, nose, and throat doctor, thinking maybe it was a separate issue. So it was a lot of, it was a long effort for
Right.
sure to finally get diagnosed.
Well, and frustrating, you're hearing Mike talk about this. So many people, when you've got something wrong, you want to be told right away, well, this is what it is, and this is how we get rid of it. So you're talking about months and months of several physicians that are not giving you any answers. What's happening during these breakouts? Is it itching? Is it painful?
Yes, severe itching, I would say. Yeah, very intense, multiple locations, as you can see with the pictures. Forehead.
It was on your elbow, I think, also, I saw.
Elbows, waist, stomach. Different. Just a lot of different areas, and all of them intensely itchy. Not all at the same time, so it'd kind of pop up, leave, and then, show up somewhere else.
Right.
And it would just keep coming back.
Yes. Yeah.
And then, so when did you meet Dr. Jensen?
Well, I had been a patient of Dr. Jensen's in the past.
Okay.
So, she was very helpful, and I think, what I appreciated was just really concerned about it. Let's treat it conservatively to begin with. If it doesn't respond to that, then let's see, what else we can do. And eventually, we got to the answer.
So let's talk about that. Again, this long road of we don't know what it is, we don't know what it is. So what were you using, first of all, to treat him? And then how did you determine that it was tied into celiac?
Well, I think initially I kind of empirically treated him, which means like I'm not quite sure what we have here, but maybe it's like a folliculitis, like kind of like acne or some kind of other, skin condition. So I think I tried maybe some antibiotics. I might have tried some topicals, some just creams or ointments. I know I gave you a few prednisone shots just out of
Sure.
we got to get you better. He's traveling, and and he would flare here and there, and he wasn't always flared when he came into the office. So we'd have photographs to look at, which really helps for dermatologists. If you have a flaring or a waxing and waning condition, it's good to get a picture of it because sometimes you come in and you're completely clear. But he was great, so he was very motivated, which makes it easier for me too to try to diagnose it and get him clear. But I think we did a initial biopsy, which wasn't diagnostic, and we were thinking about DH at the time. We did a workup for alpha gal, and ironically, he was positive.
Oh, really?
Right.
We sent you to an allergist.
Yes, yeah. So with alpha gal, as you know, it reacts to exposures to different types of mammal meat, but they couldn't pinpoint exactly what the animal was, which apparently leads you to maybe other things that are causing this bodily reaction, some other exposure.
Right. So he was one of those who was positive on the lab work, but it really probably wasn't relevant clinically. So then back to me, we're trying to look for, more of a definitive diagnosis. We finally get the biopsies, and you have to do special biopsies for this. You can't just do the typical, what we call H&E biopsy. So we do a couple more biopsies. Finally, we get the diagnosis of DH. And so I believe at that point we sent him to a dietitian to try to get some help with gluten-free, options, because that can be really challenging. I mean, better now because now you have aisles of it, and it's usually on menus as well. We started a medicine called Dapsone, which works on some of the inflammation. And ironically, like Dapsone can work within like 2 to 3 days, and the itching should be gone. Pretty safe drug. I mean, there's always risk, but he's been doing well with Dapsone. I mean, occasional flares here and there.
Yes, and there again, we've got it up on the screen for you. That's a treatment of choice for DH. Reduces the itch, which is what Mike was saying that he was dealing with, just annoying, and I want this to go away. We see the dose ranges. But Mike, as you started to go through this and start to learn with the dietitian, here's where you have to start changing the way you're eating. I just remember my brother 3 decades ago talking about, oh my gosh, I can't have this anymore. I can't have that anymore. And then we got to change how we're cooking. So this was how long ago for you?
The whole journey started like 2 years ago.
Okay.
I'd say. So the diagnosis, I think, was maybe in early 2003.
And so
2023, yeah.
23, yeah.
2023.
I'm sorry.
Right,
yeah,
right.
How difficult was it for you to start having to make those changes?
So DH is a type of celiac disease. You have celiac as an underlying disease, and then DH is like
a subset. Yeah.
So I don't have necessarily the underlying extensive GI issues that normally come with celiac. Thank goodness. So, but it's still celiac, and it still reacts to gluten. So it was a whole lifestyle change.
Yes.
I always say this is not really life-threatening, but it is life-altering because, like you said, I mean, just your you have to look at everything that you're putting into your body, and not just the food that you eat, the restaurants you go to. It's absorption, absorption of gluten. So the lotions that you use. I mean, different medicines. Every prescription I get, I have to find out who the manufacturer is and call them and say, ask them if their medicine contains gluten.
Right.
If you're just tuning in, let's break this down for you again. And I want you to do me a favor. I hope they can watch live. If they can't, make sure they watch this show later because this affects so many people. If you're just tuning in, Dr. Sarah Jensen, Mike Minneke, we're talking about celiac. We're talking about DH, which I'm going to let her do the medical term. What is it again?
Dermatitis herpetiformis, which is really a terrible name. It has blistering. So in the past they kind of call it like herpetic, like herpes, but has nothing to do with the virus. So you're looking at these pictures, and again, because that is in the name, it looks like, oh, is this like some form of that? No, it's not. But as you can see, frustrating. We're going to go through several pictures here, and I know I always show these to you when you're getting ready to eat breakfast. But go ahead and text or email, call somebody, and let them know that we're talking about this because it may be affecting them, or they might say, oh my gosh, I had no idea that this was possibly related to foods. So, Dr. Sarah, let's go deep into this, the problems with our food in the United States. So one of the things that I was reading that you had sent me was people traveling. They go to Europe, and they say, well, I could eat food that had gluten in it. Is it made different in Europe? We're going to break all these things down. So, right there. I can't tolerate gluten in the United States, but I can in Europe. Experts are unpacking the phenomenon. Many people sensitive, so they might have a gluten intolerance. They may have full-blown celiac. Is it actually made different in Europe than it is in the U.S.? I mean, I was reading about it too. We do have different types of wheat here, and they are different in their, your tolerance of them. Then there's another thought that maybe it's our additives in our foods. So there's a whole nother, line of thought with that being a problem. So I don't think there's one issue, but I think maybe it's we might process our food more, so it might be more antigenic, meaning more allergic potentially. So,
and there's tons of people that say, "Oh my gosh, I think I have celiac," and then they find out they go and they have tests done, and they don't, but they have an intolerance, right? And so if you do, I don't know, it's kind of like playing Russian roulette. Why would you try it if all these symptoms happen to you?
Right.
You're bloating, you've got abdominal pain. Again, you might have the reactions that Mike's having, but people have a tendency to just say, oh, I don't want to give it up though. I don't want to give up these
Right.
foods. And they
Right.
deal with this, which it
Right.
doesn't really make any sense to me. He's smiling.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly right. I mean,
Right?
it is extremely difficult. But when I went to see the GI doctor after I was diagnosed with celiac, he said, no, 100%, you have to take gluten out of your diet. And he was very, very firm about that. So it's just a different mindset. And it's just doing, a lot of research, a lot of upfront work. And my poor wife, she's on top of it, fortunately. She knows it backwards and forwards.
Yeah, these women and men that are behind their loved one that, again, I just think of my sister-in-law and all the changes she makes because she's a phenomenal cook, but now it was a whole nother way of cooking and using all these different things. You know what the funny thing is? So my brother says, do you know what I miss the most? And I was like, I don't know, because I know she's making bread for you now that is gluten-free. And he goes, a Taco Bell burrito.
Oh, wow.
He's like, that one we can't seem to try to duplicate.
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
like, oh my gosh, you're so silly. Any of you that have any questions or comments, let us know. Are you dealing with a gluten intolerance or celiac, or have you had skin irritations like this and no one's been able to get down to the root of it? That's what we're discussing today. So yes, the additives, the herbicides, all those things that are used in our food. I mean, how do we make these changes? We've got to. That's what's frustrating to so many of us, that
Right.
people are trying to be healthier and then they're trying to look and read labels,
Right.
and then it comes back that all these things, unfortunately, by the FDA are allowed within our food, which I'm sure
Right.
the dietitian probably told you. You got to watch
Yeah.
for this.
Right. And Monica, I think there is a lot more awareness now, though. Like you were saying, your brother 30 years ago,
Yes.
diagnosis, really nobody knew. I mean, you still sometimes get the deer in the headlights look, at a restaurant, let's say, gluten, what's that? They're not that aware of it, but some places are totally on top of it.
Yes.
So
Right.
they'll give you a gluten-free menu. I know there's a Subway type sandwich place that they'll change their gloves and everything and use the gluten-free bread and that. So I think it's getting better,
Right.
but maybe it's not, of course, not 100%, but definitely that helps you.
Right.
Yeah, it's not. So a lot of people, again, if you don't deal with this, great for you. But if you do, you understand the levels that restaurants have to go through, because they cannot use the same pans. They have to use, ideally, an entirely different cooking area, because you have to worry about cross-contamination.
Right.
I mean, if you have it really bad, it's to the point that a crumb could fall on a utensil, and then that causes these flare-ups. Some of them actually could be fatal, is it not? I mean, to that extreme of if someone who has celiac.
Right. In the sense that, so the reason people tend to go on a gluten-free diet is, one, because it helps the skin. It also helps heal your gut. So if you have chronic inflammation from eating gluten, the thought is that you might have an increased risk of gut lymphoma.
Okay.
So lymphoma is when your white blood cells, they kind of aggregate and grow. It's just really a cancer of those white blood cells. So that's the thought too, just to keep the gut calm and not inflamed. So not only will it help you clinically, but it'll help you, long term with that risk.
Absolutely. So what we see from the DH breaking out, we saw it on your forehead. Can it
Right.
take over anywhere on the body?
It can go anywhere. And I've been seeing so many cases that just don't look like the classic picture. Typically, DH, you would think of it as just, a lot of times the patients have scratched the, lesions so much that you just see a little bit of open wounds.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that clinically, prominent. But I've been seeing cases that have hives, that have big plaques. I just diagnosed a young girl in her teens. We had to do 3 biopsies because I thought she's got a couple different things going on. They were all dermatitis herpetiformis. And I have 2 girls that I follow that are under age 15, and I've never seen that young of an age of DH. And I was reading just to find out more about it, and it does seem like it's climbing. Every year it's a 7% increase in the U.S. and in Europe too. Even though their gluten, might be a little bit more tolerable, they still are seeing an increase too.
Well, and that was one of the things in the article that you sent me. You were mentioning that the wheat, again, in Europe, it might be different, but then you're starting to see the same types of wheat being used there also.
Right.
So they're seeing a higher amount in Europe as well.
Right. And I know personally too, because my daughter doesn't have the DH, but she does have an intolerance to gluten. So she just gets that bloating, discomfort. I'm sure she'll appreciate me telling this on your show. But I'm aware too of how difficult it is as a family, a household, to keep, one, plate gluten free. So the whole family tends to alter their diet because of it.
Oh, absolutely.
But we're amazed, like you said, Mike, about you'll see the GF on the menus. She's very proactive. She'll ask, do you have a gluten-free menu? You can get it like Katie's Pizza. They have a cauliflower or gluten-free crust. There's a lot of gluten-free pastas. I think also there's kind of just a trend where people don't want to eat gluten, and so that's made it a little bit more in fashion or easier to get to.
Yeah, but let's address that. I'm going to say this for my brother. He says all the time, he's like, it is not a diet. All these people that are like, oh, I'm going to eat gluten-free, and he's like, I wouldn't want to have to do this if I didn't have to. You agree with that?
100%. Yeah. And people, they kind of give you that look like, okay, you're making my job a lot harder because you're on this diet.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, it's
I'm not on a diet.
It's medical,
Yes.
a medical reason.
It's a necessity.
But it's turned into that over the last decade that people are like, oh, am I going to lose weight if I eat gluten-free? And I was like, this is a medical thing, folks. But it's just become that. And again, as I mentioned, aisles of it in the grocery store now, which makes it easier for people who truly are intolerant to gluten or they have celiac. It's for them. But yes, the other part is I think there's all these different support groups online that will say, here's restaurants to trust and continue to give them business because they truly do have a kitchen or an area that's dedicated to those who need gluten-free, which is beneficial.
Right. Yeah. And there's a few apps out there as well. So,
there's an app for everything, isn't there, Mike?
Yeah, right. But like Dr. Jensen was saying, there's, I do travel a lot for work, so I'll jump on the app, one of the gluten-free apps, and look for restaurants in the area that have gluten-free menus and that, and people review them and, test, or not test, but talk about their level of knowledge and preparation for serving customers with celiac.
Yeah, trying to make your life a little easier. It's 7:30. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to ask if it's treated. And then if they reintroduce gluten, does it continue to come back? Is it this vicious circle? We'll talk about that. And is there other immune issues, autoimmune issues that could cause skin issues? Because a lot of you are probably thinking GI related. And okay, I get that this is probably the problem. But I was hoping that today, when you hear this, you might be like, oh my gosh, I have what it looks like on those pictures. I didn't realize that possibly is all from what I'm eating, or what we're putting on our body, all these things that exist in our world that I know a lot of you get frustrated by. So any questions or comments, we'll be looking for those for you. We'll have more with Dr. Sarah Jensen and Mike Minneke when we return. He wants to say, I can't believe I took your son's life. I don't know what I was thinking. I have so much regret and remorse. I've changed my life. Would you accept that apology?
I've never thought of that. Yeah, I would.
Do you think, because you talk about forgiveness, do you think that you all can ever forgive one another and come back together?
It wasn't just right. I'm not perfect. I'm, just because my name is Bush, I don't have it all figured out. And I think they know that too.
I was cyclically depressed, so I could be the happiest person you ever met at 11 a.m. I could be on cloud 9. And by 7 p.m. that evening, I'd be sitting on a couch with a gun in my hand and thinking hard not to get emotional. I
never feel sorry for being emotional.
I really, I was at a space to where I couldn't believe that I had brought my children into this.
Where's the light? Because many of you probably feel that there's this darkness and there's this thunder cloud that's constantly over you. This family has dealt with so much.
So our journey is our journey. There has to be purpose in this pain. There has to be something more powerful. I have to find something to be blessed about every day. I have to count my blessings and have gratitude every single day.
Welcome back at 7:33. Thank you again to Michelle Harmon putting these wonderful promos together having to do with the heartbreaking stories that we've discussed. And have you seen the new one that we put all over social media about the fun we have here as well? So, You never know when you tune in what we're going to discuss on the show. We hope to educate you. We hope to give you aha moments. We hope to make you think. We hope to make you realize you have blessings in life when you hear some of these stories of what people have gone through, and then just laugh together. I mean, that's truly the way life is, the ups and downs of life. And today we're talking about someone that's been dealing with something, talking to different physicians and thinking, what in the heck is this? Finally, Dr. Sarah Jensen from Regional Dermatology was like, oh, this is what it is, and this is how we treat it. So, Dr. Jensen, I went into the break asking if someone just kind of teeters back and forth and, oh, what the heck, I'm going to try this. I miss this type of food. Will that cause this to come back?
Well, it definitely will get a flare. We've talked about that, Mike. When Mike's just introduced a little bit of something, maybe you have that pizza craving, or you're out with, and you don't have options. But definitely, people get flares, and you get flares even if you don't try gluten. Sometimes
Right.
I think there's a little bit that sneaks in, right?
Well, what I've read too is that iodine might be a trigger as well. So you might be totally gluten free, but you have that exposure to some salty food, and that's going to cause it to react. So
Interesting.
yeah, and who knows? I mean, you read stuff on the internet, but definitely, like last week. So I had a flare up, my elbows and everything, and kind of my neck area. Same thing over again. The Dapsone, though, I think really does help minimize that, and it also treats the itching, so it's not
Right.
nearly as itchy as it was.
Right, and the itching is what he said that he had dealt with. So we showed a picture of Mike where you saw it on his forehead, and then one that was on his elbow, and then Zach, our director, pulled several other pictures. So there's only a couple on here that are actually Mike, but some of these really severe that other patients have gone through. You have never had anything that bad.
Of the one of the stomach, definitely not.
Right.
No, not like that at all. Some of the other ones do look familiar, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those. I mean, that's pretty severe.
Right. Yeah.
But I saw some other pictures that you provided for me, and it was in the buttocks area and
Right,
just
right.
all over. And you think if that's all itching, just how horrible that is. But you have patients that are young all the way into seniors that you've seen with this.
Exactly. And I just didn't see it at this frequency when I was in residency or earlier in my career, but it just seems like I'm seeing it more, more and more often these days.
And that's unfortunate because we're talking about what is in our food. And I know a lot of you know how big I am being in the wellness industry as long as I have to try to get everybody to be aware of what you're putting inside. I mean, you met with the dietitian, so we all work hand in hand. I liked this one. I'm glad that Zach put this up for you. So geographic differences in the incidence, 1 per 100,000 person years of celiac disease. The A before 2000, then B 2000 onward. So we're seeing it increase not only in the United States, but in other areas as well. And we talked about the difference in wheat, and it's also the flour, different types of flour containing different levels of gluten. All wheat contains some level of gluten, but those levels vary depending on the type of wheat. Wheat grown in the United States, typically higher in gluten content since the majority is hard red wheat. Europe grows soft wheat, which has lower gluten content. However, they're saying that in Europe, they're starting to implement and use different types of wheat that we have here in the United States, though, as well. So the incidence of celiac disease in Europe has been increasing at the same rate as in the U.S., and Europeans with the condition avoid gluten in their home countries, which is really what will help. So here's kind of a breakdown for you of United States, Canada, New Zealand, Italy, Germany, the Netherlands, United Kingdom, Denmark. We'll look at the lower side back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, it starts to creep up, and then it just goes nuts. So the way our food is made. Now, Dr. Jensen, let me ask this on a medical side. My mom had heard that if you have a baby that was colicky, back then, my brother would have been in the late 60s,
Right.
that they were like, oh, your baby's colicky. And they didn't test for anything like this because I don't remember anyone talking about gluten or celiac until
Right.
my brother was diagnosed 30 years ago, but most people are saying probably in the last 10, 15, 20 years. Back then, let's go decades ago,
Right.
did we not have a gluten problem? Did we not see it being used in foods?
And just not at this level. I don't know if it's related to the antigenicity, like the allergic process character of our gluten, or if it has to do with the additives we have, or just the extra processing. I really don't know, but there's definitely an increase, and according to those papers, like 7% increase every year in the U.S., which is very high. And
Right.
it's not just gluten; it's also barley and then rye. So anything you think of like being distilled, those things can also cause problems. And that's what tipped us off too, because Mike had been traveling and he said, I had a flare overseas after I'd had a beer. And I think we had, kind of triggered our thought, so just like we talked about last week with the tick-borne disease, like, oh, I had a tick. And then those doctors went a whole different direction in treating our patient. Same thing here. I was like, oh, that history really can bring about a narrowing the diagnosis.
Well, you probably as a physician, and I'm a big proponent of this, to constantly be keeping track, a journal, that all helps you bring that into your doctor.
We might have even talked about that. I tell people who have hives or, just a waxing, waning, skin condition, let's keep a food diet or just any kind of like food diary, just to so we know what's going on, what you ingested, even supplements or, medicines, just so we really know. And I learned that with an allergist at St. Louis University. And so, just to keep track of that and see when did you flare. And if people are really good about it, it really can elicit, the diagnosis.
Well, yeah, and that helps them to be able to get to that quicker. But we always mention that you have to be your own advocate in this. Are there other immune issues, autoimmune disorders, things like that create problems on the outside?
Oh my gosh, there's so many.
Is there?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the autoimmune conditions we follow with rheumatologists, lupus, dermatomyositis, scleroderma. There's so many different conditions we see. Thyroid disorders, causing hives. So the skin shows a lot of our internal, manifestations of disease. So
Didn't know that. Well, I know we were talking about getting into some of this, and we provided some slides. I don't know if Zach has them ready for today, but in regards to lupus, I didn't know that. That's what I love about this particular day is that we get so much more in-depth of things that I wouldn't know about. So there's some slides from lupus, everything I heard growing up, it was all inside. Yeah,
Right.
we're looking at these. So these are the things as a dermatologist that she's seeing.
Right.
If you see these, when you start to try to diagnose, where does your mind first go? Let's just look at some of these pictures. As that comes in, what does that look like to you?
So you could think about lupus, you could think about rosacea. You could also think he's on a medicine that makes him more photosensitive, doxycycline or some of the blood pressure medicines, allergic contact. There's such a long differential, but lupus lupus is a diagnosis of, that you have to meet multiple criteria. 4 of those are just related to skin, like oral ulcers, a malar, which is like cheek rash. It's that photodistributed rash. So there's 4 of those criteria for lupus are just skin related. So,
and then we're looking at lupus. So for those of you that have someone in your family or you yourself have been diagnosed with lupus, this is how it affects the body. I knew somebody when I was in my early years of radio that had that, and she was talking about hair loss and fever and fatigue and headaches, and the biggest one I heard from her was what you're seeing on the bottom, the stiff swollen joints.
Right.
And then sun exposure, rash, mouth and nose sores. Is it Raynaud's?
Raynaud's, I actually have that. That's when you go into and my husband, when you go into a cold temperatures, you might be in the deli department at the grocery store, and your fingers actually turn very blanched and can get kind of painful and numb. Oh. It's, you can have that unrelated to having an underlying condition, but it's one of the things you do think about. And if you test people for lupus, sometimes it comes up positive, but, again, there's false positives where you might have a positive test for a screening, for lupus or other rheumatologic diseases. So you have to put it all in context. That one test won't help you. You have to put it into clinical context too.
And then again, so I want to talk a little bit more about these other things that come up and cause flare-ups. But Mike, with regards to what you have, is it something that since he has it, and I think it's the same testing that when my brother had celiac, we all got tested to make sure that we didn't. Is there anybody else within your family that has to deal with this?
I have a niece, actually. And she, it's funny how she reacted. She was actually joyful that somebody else in the family could share, but she's going through.
Yes, finally have an answer, right?
Right, yeah. So she sent me a kind of a comical video, She goes, "I'm so sorry about your diagnosis, but I'm not really."
She
gave me some answers.
Condition?
No, she does not have DH.
Okay.
Yeah, just celiac, and and of course I've got some friends also with celiac, but she's the only one in the family.
Yeah.
So really take us from, I always love to pull everything together. So I talk about this triangle of life theory that if our mental side is great, our spiritual side is great, our physical side is great, then we're walking around as a balanced human being. And that's what we all want in life, is to find our way to that. Once Dr. Jensen was able to say, this is what we have, this is how we can treat it, what did that do to you from the spiritual, mental side of getting you, just like your niece just said, thank you?
Yes, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a total game changer when you can finally pinpoint what it is that's causing this. And then, the other side is that it's actually treatable. It's treatable through changing your diet and through the medicine, dapsone. And I will say, I kind of look at it as also maybe a wake-up call that, I didn't really always pay attention a lot to what I was eating and all that. And it really kind of caused me to step back and look at that and say, is this the right thing that you should be putting into your body, especially as we get older, right? So that, and then also before, like a good friend of mine who has celiac has tremendous GI issues. Thankfully, I'm not there yet, but this was probably a warning shot saying you don't want to get to that point with celiac.
No, you don't.
Yeah, so I think it was a blessing. I really the diagnosis itself was very positive for me.
And one of the things that Mike just said, I think, is one of the most powerful things of this entire hour, and that is awareness. Someone who's been in the health and fitness world, we want you more and more and more to understand what you're putting in your body. We need our fuel for life, just to be able to have mental awareness, to be able to do our sport and the activity that we want, just to survive in life. But all too often, people are just quick to I'm just going to throw this in, this is processed, I don't care. And then you look and go, well, wait a minute, my kids are watching that, then my kids are eating that way. And it's this vicious cycle until someone breaks it. Right. And then you go to a dietitian or you go to a personal trainer and it's, well, let's break these things down. I wish I would have provided the picture for Zach. I don't know if I can get it to him quickly. I just started training Ruby Lee. I'm going to send this to you, Zach, and maybe we can turn this around. Ruby Lee, who maybe from The Voice, she was the runner-up of The Voice. She and I started training together just 6 weeks ago. And I want you to see, because she'll see this from a medical standpoint. If the person on the left of this picture walked in, what I saw and what I think she would see is inflammation. We can see inflammation in so many levels, and I saw that on her, and you can just see that someone's miserable at that point. And as you mentioned, what we're putting in our body will then show itself in several areas: our hair, our skin, our nails. More hydration is important. So she and her sister have been training with me. This picture is only from 6 weeks ago to show the before and after. So Zach, I sent that text to him. If he can get that up maybe in the next 5 or 10 minutes or so, we'll show this. And I hope that is an awareness that it's not what the scale says. It's not what the back of the label says and what the size is. It's truly how are you feeling, right? And when you pull gluten out, when you have an intolerance or you have celiac, suddenly it's, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. And I don't have what you were dealing with, right? All these things. If you miss something and you go back, you're tempting fate again. It's, well, I'm going to deal with this, but I will. Okay, gosh, Zach, you are quick. On the left is only 6 weeks ago. Wow. On the right is just a couple days ago. Right? You can see, I mean, that's an aha moment for so many people that this is what we've done in just 6 weeks' time. However, here's the thing. She's been the perfect client. I hate to use the word perfect, but she's been the ideal. Let's use that. The ideal client, because she came to me and listened to everything that I said, which was, we've got to clean up the way you're eating. We're going to get you hydrating. She's carrying around this huge jug of water, and then you got to work out. We've got to do this. And when you do that, look what happens. And I'm getting her ready for her big Grand Ole Opry performance.
Oh, how wonderful.
Right? The invite has come, and she will be performing on August 2nd. She knows I'm leaving to go to Cabo, and she said, what am I going to do? And I said, we'll be in touch with each other. I promise I will take care of you. But yeah, isn't that incredible, everybody? So that's Ruby, and she's only getting started. What I love is this isn't to get ready for just an event and then go back to the old lifestyle. If you keep looking at those pictures, you'll go, I don't even recognize that person. Was that even a part of me?
Right.
Yeah. Yes. So all these changes can be made. So I mentioned earlier about other autoimmune disorders. So when you see the pictures that we had before come in, and you have to go through, is it blood test, or how are you determining what is actually the cause of those hives and the rashes, et cetera?
Well, in dermatology, we look at what the rash looks like, but also the pattern, like the clinical pattern. So like DH, for example, typically affects the back of the head, the elbows, the knees, sometimes the lower back. But like lately, I've been seeing it present in so many different ways. So it can sort of trick you. So typically, I'll try to treat to make the patient more comfortable. But we'll do a skin biopsy, maybe 2, just a little sample. And I always tell them we're not looking for cancer when we're looking at because people hear biopsy and they immediately go
sure
to.
do. Yep.
I've learned that over the years. So we try to make them comfortable. Do the sample. We might do some blood tests based on what the biopsy shows. It's kind of a succession. I don't want to do it all at once because the biopsy may change my direction. And like in Mike's case, sometimes you have to resample. Sometimes you don't get the diagnosis the first time. So that can be very helpful.
And then you got on the screen right now, diagnostic blood test, auto antibody test for DH.
I have done those some, but the patient actually has to be on a gluten diet. They actually have to be ingesting gluten. So some patients who are concerned about having celiac or DH don't want to continue the gluten. You can't be gluten free when you do these tests. But I have done them on some patients. Yeah.
Okay. And so if someone has celiac right now and they're watching, or they get this show that's passed on to them later, what should they be looking for? Because, again, Mike has shown some of the pictures that he dealt with. Other ones are very, very severe. But does it start off small? And then that was the other question, because you had mentioned when they itch, does it spread when they're itching?
It typically stays in those areas, but it's the intense itching that really gets you. And classically, it was not so much a clinical rash. You just see these little open wounds, and so you really didn't see the blisters or the vesicles because they would be scratched off. So you might think of things like scabies, which is in the environment and, gives everyone a little itch when they think about it.
As soon as you say it.
Sometimes we'll treat empirically. I'll say, I don't know if this is what we have, but let's treat it. It's an easy, option. Let's get that one off the table. Because biopsies don't always show you that as well. So we'll kind of go with a progression of different, and we did that with Mike too. Give him a little antibiotic, a little topical, cream or wash, and finally just the biopsy really can narrow it, fully for us.
For you, where did yours start?
My forehead.
Forehead.
Yeah. So it was, and I think I had some pictures that never really went away. I mean, it would be either a rash or just a blister would randomly show up, and then, as I mentioned before, roof of my mouth, I would have, I had blister, my elbows, and then it would kind of rotate around.
Right.
Yeah, there's the pictures of Mike specifically. But you think about that happening. So if someone has it on their arms or they have it on the trunk of their body or they're on their legs, you think, okay, I'm going to cover up. But that's frustrating, right? Because it's right there. Everybody, you're like, what's wrong?
Right.
Right? Did you have people asking?
Well,
or they were staring, because that's what they do.
Yes, exactly. Right. I was thinking, you probably think that they're staring more than they actually are, but we always laugh about this walking in. So I had I think I twisted my ankle or something at the park, doing some stuff. So I was limping and I had this big blotch on my forehead and I couldn't talk because I had this blister. And I'm walking into church, like this, and I'm thinking, nobody's going to want to sit next to me. It's like that guy's going to get struck by lightning if anybody, But yeah, so it does. It does affect that. I mean,
that was the mental side I was talking about. Of course it does.
Right.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm not a leper.
Yeah.
Right? You can't sit next to me.
Right.
Be here for me. Really, it's just talking. And I think if you talk it out a little bit more, you might end up finding out, oh, well, so-and-so has this. Maybe that's what's going on.
Right.
Then that's when I want you to get in. So let's talk about this also. You mentioned that your hours have changed. Is it at your Chesterfield?
At the Chesterfield location. We're now open Monday through Friday, so much more availability. And we're keeping the fastest hours the same. I hired a new physician assistant to help with some of the overflow, so it's been a really great time of change for us.
Yeah, she's been busy.
Yeah.
You were going to go to the Cardinal game with us, and she's like, Monica, which I love this because I always tell people, find your voice, go ahead and say it. Don't think that someone's going to be upset. And she's like, can I take a rain check? And I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely. And she's like, I have a couple of daughters going away to college, and I just get overwhelmed. And yes, so I'm glad you took care of yourself. I'm very big on that. So yes, I want you to make a call for whatever it is that you need. But there's a lot of people. There's 2 new patients you're going to get, by the way, from lunch I went to over the weekend, and they said, oh, somebody had a dermatology appointment, and she's like, well, I'm not tied to that person. I said, well, you're going to love her. You got to switch to her. And she's like, okay. But the other one was like, yes, I've heard the same thing. Is there a problem of getting into your dermatologist? And for some, it's 6, 7, 8, 9 months, and she's able to get you in. She's got her new location. There's the phone numbers, by the way, Festus and Chesterfield. And then go ahead and go online, regionaldermatology.com. You can follow them. I'm always tagging her on Facebook. You can follow Regional Dermatology. There's 2 actually that come up. You have one from the Festus location, I guess, and then just one Regional Dermatology. Is that right? Or is it one Chesterfield, one Festus?
For the
yeah, whenever I go to tag, it actually brings up 2 different pages.
Oh yeah, we do. I think we have separate. I
Okay.
don't do my daughter's
Somebody
doing my
handles that.
social media. So
Exactly. I'm going to take a quick break. We got a comment that we understand is coming in, and for me, I'm feeling 100 Days to Freedom from Overeating. We
that's
haven't
a great
done
one.
overeating in a long, long time. Somebody asked, where can you get these books? I got them at the Crossing in Chesterfield at their bookstore, their library that they have there. But I have found these on Amazon. Just look all over, and if these resonate with you, yeah, they're really great. 100 Days to Freedom from Fear and Anxiety. That's one. Together, Fear and Anxiety. 100 Days to Freedom from Shame, Depression, anger, and then overeating. Those are the ones that we have. We'll see what your comment is. Anybody else, quickly, if you've got a comment or a question here in the next few minutes, drop it in right now as we take our final break. Otherwise, you can, of course, do that after the show throughout the day, and we'll be looking at those for you. We'll take care of you for sure. More with Dr. Sarah Jensen and Mike Minicky and myself when we return. Everyone knows about Jody's balls, and why is that?
I have the best ball.
Oh, wait. Welcome back at 7:54. So the comment is actually from Julie Fabian, who's a big viewer of the show on a regular basis. And she said to you, I had a great experience. The office staff was wonderful, as well as Dr. Sarah.
oh, it's great to hear.
There you go.
Really.
And, and before I read from this, she, I know, was nervous. And she said she was scared. And you just made the comment that a lot of people are, aren't
a
they?
lot of people are nervous, and it can come off as fear or even anger or just worry, and so or just being quiet. So you just have to kind of pull that out of people when you see them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that could be any of these books now. You just said fear and anger. We're going to do overeating. But Julie, I'm so glad that you went in, and maybe now you have a sense of calmness, because just like Mike experienced, it's finally having the answer to this crazy question that you've been had in your body of what is going on. And I know some people are scared because they don't want to be told that they have, if you mentioned the word biopsy, that freaks people out if they hear they have skin cancer. But you don't want to be living with that. You need to get it taken care of. That's
Right.
the importance of going in. And you mentioned for us, I don't know if it was last week or if it was 2 weeks ago, but you said after the age of 40 that we should have an annual.
Typically, an annual skin check, according to the American Academy of Dermatology.
And you've got to slow down. I'm going to say this. Myself and my husband, we both said, okay, when are we making our appointment? So I guess it's going to happen now when I return from Cabo, which was probably a good thing. She'll be like, Monica, well, you were in the sun too much. Wear the sunscreen. Okay, so too much of a good thing. This is day 18 of 100 Days to Freedom from Overeating. I have the right to do anything, you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but not everything is constructive. This is actually from Corinthians 10, verse 23. So God has given us so many incredibly good things, especially food. It's been utilized for centuries as a tool to connect people, celebrate special occasions, as well as create a nurturing environment for families and their friends. Just like many good things in this world, however, food can be taken and turned into something that it was never meant to be. Isn't that interesting? Mm-hmm. Everything we've seen over the decades of looking back, and no one ever talked about gluten, all these heavily processed foods and additives and things like that. You would think at some point we would see all these problems and that the government would say, we've got to start changing things. Honestly, it's going to take somebody that just puts her foot down and starts changing from probably the political realm. Overindulging in food, similar to taking for granted the energy and the effort that was put into creating it. Too much of any food will leave a person feeling sick. You feel overfull, sometimes tired, sometimes depressed. Let us replace a mindset of consumerism with a mindset of gratitude, approaching meals with an appreciation for the growing, harvesting and cooking of the food. And I'm going to pause there for a second. When I do my life coaching and when I actually meet with someone who overeating is the problem, I will say, how does it serve you? Are you eating to dull the pain from the past? Are you eating out of boredom? Sit with it. Appreciate the beauty of what you just created for yourself. Slow down and be in the moment of it. You know, when you go for that second helping or you open a bag of chips late at night, remember the further processed the food is, the more disconnected we become from the original source of the food. The good news is there is never such a thing as too much learning about God, listening to encouraging music that draws you closer to Him. Maybe you pray, maybe you memorize His Word. You know, I'm big on meditation. Let's talk from Joyce Meyer. We must remember we are stewards of what God has provided for us, not owners. Christine Kane said, we have so many Christians who want to change the world, but they don't want to change themselves. Today's prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for giving me good things. Thank you so much for the gift of healthy, nutritious food. Replace my heart of consumerism with a heart of gratitude for what I eat. Amen. I love it. We haven't done the overeating one in a long time, but I think we need to because it resonates with so many of you. Well, Mike, thank you for coming in and telling your story. I greatly appreciate that. And I'm so glad that the two of you knew each other and that she was finally able to give you these answers you were seeking out from so many other physicians and getting frustrated, because if you hadn't, you would have, who knows, if you would have ever known.
Yeah.
Right.
You would have just kept dealing with it.
Yeah. Try not to think about that, but I'm glad that Dr. Jensen got to the bottom of it.
We have these little angels in the medical world that walk into our life, and we'll forever be grateful. Yeah, people are doing likes and loves. All right, let's put it on the screen one more time. For you to set up your appointment, you can do so at either the Festus location. Let's break this down. Where in Festus are you?
We're just across the street from Mercy Jefferson.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, and then the Chesterfield location?
We're just off 40 between Clarkson and Chesterfield Parkway North.
And again, we mentioned earlier that the hours have changed for the Chesterfield location. So there they are on your screen. There's the addresses. And you can email them as well, info@regionaldermatology.com, if you have any questions and you want to set up your appointment. She can get you in, and that's the biggest thing that I want you to do, is to not put it off any longer. For you, for anybody in your family, if you know someone that has something that they've been dealing with for a while, make sure that they don't put it off any longer. Dr. Jensen, thank you as always for coming in. I'll miss you all next Monday because I will be in Cabo. I actually was driving in this morning going, maybe I should get up and I can join her from Cabo. And then everyone's like, Monica, take a vacation. Okay, fine, I'll listen. Mike, thank you so very much. I appreciate you telling your story. And to each and every one of you, again, do us a favor and share this with all of those on your pages. And I would like you to actually take a piece and say, boy, this really resonated with me. Watch this. Maybe your family or friends know your own story, and you'll say, this right here has to do with me, instead of just a normal share, because then is there something in there that really resonated with you that might resonate with your audience? So do that for us. Facebook and YouTube, you can share it. We're going to have some stories and reels that we'll show you a little bit later on Instagram, as well as Rumble and X. We put them all over the place. And if there's ever a topic, by the way, that you want for me to discuss, email me, info@TheRealMonicaAdams.com, and let's do that for you. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about something that I loved growing up, which is soccer. David Lang is an author, and we're going to tie it into St. Louis City SC, which I'm a big fan of going to see games there. That stadium is beautiful if you have not been yet. But David Lang, he's a soccer author, so he'll be in with us tomorrow. We're going to have a little fun with him. So thank you all for tuning in today, and remember what I tell you. Go out, first of all, be careful because it's ridiculously hot, 102 degrees with a heat index of 110. So spend as little time outside as you can. Try to stay in some air conditioning, bring the animals in, check on the elderly, and you hear all that means to be kind to one another. Do that to yourself as well. Have a great day.